Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, despite there being still vast amounts of oppression, racism, and sexism going on in the world, which is what we're going to talk about today. We have for you 6 news stories. We're going to have 3 news stories originating from the city of Seattle, and then we'll take a look at 3 news stories out of the city of San Francisco. Up first, you can see here we have a news story from Seattle. It says, the title is, "It Changes at Night. Alki neighbors take action against illegal activity." Let's have a look at this.
Jewel here in Seattle.
During the day, Steve Pumphrey says families are out enjoying themselves.
It changes at night, and it always has.
In his 25 years, he's had a front row seat to Seattle's skyline, as well as the crime below his balcony.
4 in the morning.
Awoken in the middle of the night.
Sometimes it's 1 in the morning, sometimes it's 3 in the morning when this happens, or even 4 in the morning.
You should know that oppression never sleeps. It is going on all the time, all around us. And this man just noticed, he's just noticing that. I mean, he should have noticed that a long time ago, but at least he's noticing.
Taken to capturing footage of what he says is street racing and tricks.
See him sitting up on the door now?
In August of last year, Pumphrey, along with Mike Gain and other Alki neighbors, banded together.
We call ourselves the Harbor Alki Neighborhood Group.
Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, that is most likely just a cover for a Klan meeting, and they're just looking to get together and to take action against minorities and other marginalized communities under the guise of there's somebody racing around in the streets.
August of last year, Pumphrey, along with Mike Gain and other Alki neighbors, banded together.
We call ourselves the Harbor Alki Neighborhood Group.
Their focus is cleaning up the RVs and encampments, addressing rising crime and after-hour partying.
Our goal is really to work with the city leaders to bring Seattle back, specifically West Seattle, to what it once was.
All right, we know exactly what that means. That is absolutely a dog whistle for we don't want any minorities, we don't want anybody who is different. We are absolutely opposed to any sort of change and progress. This is clearly very problematic.
Our goal is really to work with the city leaders to bring Seattle back, specifically West Seattle, to what it once was.
And already, they've seen changes with cleanups, speed bumps, and lane dividers.
Coming down Harbor Avenue and Alki now is better than it's been in years. They are really making some headway, I must say.
But says with their city and police partnerships, there's more that needs to be done.
The early curtailment of park hours should extend beyond just the beach.
With their previous success, the group feels change will happen.
As a community, we really have come together and we feel we're all in this together.
And when he says together, he just means people that look like him, clearly. He doesn't want anybody else in there. This is clearly massive amounts of xenophobia that is getting they're using the guise of crime and problems in the community just to exercise their xenophobia.
Beach.
With their previous success, the group feels change will happen.
As a community, we really have come together and we feel we're all in this together.
Now, the group has more solutions like finishing cleanups, adding speed bumps, and increasing signage where parking is prohibited overnight. Live here in West Seattle, I'm Kristen Goodwillie.
All right, that has a lot of problems going on there. First of all, I think it's important for me to point out it changes at night. What could that possibly mean? That is definitely code for we don't want black people here. I mean, that's what that means. It changes at night because at night it's dark, it's blackout. Clearly, they don't like that. That's changes. They're clearly signaling no black people welcome. Massive amounts of xenophobia. I'm gonna even call this I might call this nightism. That might be a proper term to put this, nightism. They also mentioned a lot of complaints about noise going on, and we all know that minorities specifically express themselves that way, and these people don't want them expressing themselves that way. We're going to call that quietism. So we got quietism going on there. They also talked about cars racing around. Probably don't like cars. We'll call that carism. So a lot of very problematic things going on in this story. Seattle, you're not progressive enough. You can do better. We got more stuff from Seattle. So now we're going to go over to the next story here. This is titled, Seattle City Council Member Andrew Lewis Details Plan to Propose New Drug Ordinance. Boy, I did a terrible job reading that, didn't I? Seattle City Council Member Andrew Lewis details plan to propose new drug ordinance. All right, what do we got going on here? Let's see.
Based pre-file diversion and to work with Mayor Harrell to scale and deploy plans outlined in his
just can't do it today. I just can't.
A no vote by Councilmember Lewis meant an ordinance that would have allowed the Seattle City Attorney's Office to prosecute public drug use cases did not pass.
Okay, so it sounds like there, Mr. Andrew Lewis, right here, says he is not going to allow a new ordinance to come into effect that would prosecute people for the crime of just simply taking their medication. And they just call this, they use all these terrible words like, they just call it drugs and drug ordinances because they have a certain prejudice and bias and bigotry against these particular substances and chemicals. Luckily, Mr. Andrew Lewis here, he can't do it. Good for him. He's standing up, and let's listen to more.
Just can't do it today. I just can't.
A no vote by Councilmember Lewis meant an ordinance that would have allowed the Seattle City Attorney's Office to prosecute public drug use cases did not pass. Some people applauded the decision, while others, like the Downtown Seattle Association, called for further action.
If Councilmember Lewis or the others who voted no have some additional ideas on how to strengthen that, then bring them forward.
Well, they do have good ideas, and part of those good ideas is not prosecuting, not using law enforcement. We're not going to use any of that because we already know that disproportionately affects minorities and marginalized communities, and we're done with that. So the new ideas here, Mr. Other commentator here, you should already know you're very highly ignorant and bigoted by being uneducated and not having an open mind to all these different ideas.
But sitting on your hands will mean more people die in the city of Seattle from drugs.
Councilmember Lewis is now bringing forward additional ideas.
I didn't want it to be a situation where we pass the statute, mission accomplished, move forward. No, it's got to be a plan.
He says he will work over the next month to put together a package to align city law with state law, making public drug use a misdemeanor prosecutable by the city attorney's office.
I'm tired of going downtown and having thousands of my neighbors out in the street openly using drugs.
Well, I thought this guy was pretty progressive, but it appears he has a certain prejudice and bigotry against people simply using their medication out in the open. This is where these people live. It's in their homes. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, at least he didn't pass the stupid ordinance, so we'll give him credit for that. But he's got some work to do.
Having thousands of my neighbors out in the street openly using drugs. We need to do something about it.
Councilmember Lewis felt Tuesday's legislation did not have a proper plan for diversion and treatment services. He says more discussion needs to be had to develop a successor therapeutic court to community court, develop and fully fund treatment-based pre-file diversion, and to work with Mayor Harrell to scale and deploy plans outlined in his executive order on the fentanyl crisis.
We can't deny community court had its problems, and we can build a new court that is better and more responsive. We need to be expanding dramatically pre-file diversion. where prosecutors work directly with service providers to divert people to get help and assistance.
The drug legislation rejected Tuesday was sponsored by council members Alex Peterson and Sarah Nelson. When asked of this new plan by Lewis, Sarah Nelson said, "I'm not sure what he's got in mind, but we can't wait around for council member Lewis. This is urgent, and if there's one thing everyone seems to agree on, it's that we can't have a patchwork of local laws." Alex Peterson said, in part, "I have only seen council member Lewis's vague press release, which seems to kick the can down the road. And a press release is not a plan. We need faster, concrete action." Lewis says he hopes to work on this package throughout the month of June and then eventually will propose a new law to the council.
The people of the city deserve a plan that addresses that head on and that reduces visible drug use.
All right, that's all I can handle from this guy. He has got a lot of misconceptions and bad ideas going on. There should just be no stigma. They're just stigmatizing people using their medication. That is the number one problem here. Mr. Andrew Lewis does not get that yet. He's not understanding that. He still is approaching this as these people need to be, there's something wrong with them. There needs to be something done. But these people, they just need housing, a place to safely use these medications. His problem seems to be that he has to see it when he goes out. You know, poor him. He lives in his penthouse up in one of these fancy buildings, and then when he has to go down and deal with the lowly working classes and such, and he has to go down there and see them, so it's just so terrible on him. And we just get these people, and if those people could just be living next to him and safely doing their medication within their own housing, then that would be a solution for everybody. Unfortunately, he still comes at this approaches this particular situation. Him and the other council members are approaching it with a very negative connotation, a very negative attitude, and they need to be more accepting and more tolerant, but there's still work to do. Okay, let's move on to story number 3 here. And we've got a story from a little while ago. The headline for this story is "New CHOP lawsuits filed this week." So if you don't know what CHOP is, this was a zone they had a couple of years ago, a freedom zone and a liberation zone that they set up, and there was unfortunately some unfortunate incidents that happened, but it wasn't because of CHOP. It was because of the conditions that went in and around the CHOP area. So let's listen here.
In 2020, CHOP started on June 8th, and the zone was not cleared until July 1st. During that time, 2 teenagers were killed. One of the complaints that was filed this week is by a father who lost his son. Antonio Mays Jr. was 16 years old when he was shot and killed.
This is my son lost his life here. I lost my son.
Antonio Mays Sr., who lives in California, says it happened in June of 2020 when his son was in CHOP, the Capitol Hill organized protest zone.
I waited 2 years patiently, trying to give them a chance to, do their job, run their investigations. I was feeling.
That man has waited 2 years. 2 years to get some justice, and it's just happening way too slow. We all know most of that reason is because he's black. That's probably the biggest problem. But we got a lot of different problems going on in this whole story to begin with. The idea that they never allowed CHOP to fully expand and realize its potential. Well, we can't go back in time and fix that, but we have to just take note of that and realize that they had good intentions. They were going to make a change, but they were shut down and oppressed by the state fascists, the city fascists, and all the capitalists around there. We got a lot of things going on in this story, and let's keep going here.
CHOP, the Capitol Hill organized protest zone.
I waited 2 years patiently, trying to give them a chance to, do their job, run their investigations. I was feeling, kind of confident that they were going to be able to get some information with all the video and the pictures that I saw.
Police released video from the night of the shooting. Nearly 3 years later, no arrest.
They stopped taking my calls. They wouldn't call me back.
Basically, this is a last resort. The reason we took legal action is because there's been essentially, from what we can see, no police investigation into the murder of young Antonio Mays Jr. Who was
Attorney Evan O'Shan filed this complaint on behalf of the victim's estate and father against Washington, King County, and the city of Seattle.
Yep, though all three of those municipalities and state government agencies completely full of oppression, racism, and sexism. Of course they're going to deny any justice here. It's been 2 years, like I said. They had no choice but to go to civil court and try to get some remedy for justice. And you can't blame them. Hopefully they can succeed and get some sort of resolution. Let's continue on.
The state and father against Washington, King County, and the city of Seattle.
The city needs to step up and they need to start taking responsibility.
That's what a Capitol Hill business wants too. Molly Moons, an ice cream shop, filed a complaint in federal court this week saying constitutional and other legal rights were overrun by the city of.
Okay, this is a major foul going on right here. They actually had the audacity to compare let's see, minute 30. They had the audacity to compare somebody's ice cream business, which was affected by the chop. They're going to compare that to, where is that? Here, this man's son died. I mean, that's all we need to be talking about here. Of course, they have to bring in their stupid capitalism angle and show that some dumb business got affected. But this is the very right-wing sort of news that we have going on. So this is luckily we can see through this stuff.
By the city of Seattle's decision to abandon and close off an entire city neighborhood. The allegations are that the area was left unchecked by police and unserved by fire and emergency health services. That impacted Mays Jr., according to O'Shan.
After he was shot, the Seattle paramedics went the other way. They didn't try to help him. They left. They left him there to die.
My whole life was taken from me.
He says what he wants now is justice for his son.
I need my day in court with these people. I need my day in court.
He says he wants city leaders to answer questions about how CHOP was handled. A spokesperson for the city attorney's office says they cannot comment yet on these complaints that were just filed. In Seattle, Natalie.
Terrible, just absolutely terrible. All the things that went on there, unbelievable. The city there is just absolutely full of fascists. They absolutely refuse to serve any of the marginalized communities. There's so much oppression, racism, sexism going on in that story. What I noticed, number one, it's capitalism, of course. There is no reason these people should be going without. We got plenty of stuff, but capitalism has really caused a lot of conflict, as we know. Of course, after that, in this story, we have a lot of racism going on, clearly. We probably even got, I wouldn't say some climate denialism is going in there, because when the climate changes, it has effects and consequences. They never even touch that angle. They completely ignore it, but it's still there. And then, of course, colonialism. This is definitely plays a big factor in here. They didn't want to mention that. And another one that I like to call out is what I call BIPOC-ism. So they're not going to touch that because, like I said, they are right-wing, fascist, extremist news, and they just don't even touch that. That is all the stuff we have today for Seattle. We're going to move now south down to the lovely city of San Francisco. Story number one from San Francisco is going to be about a backlog in the San Francisco courts. And they're going to protest. Good for them. Let's see what they got.
Jose.
Well, according to the Public Defender's Office, we're talking about, listen to this, a backlog of over 1,000 cases, including at least 115 people that are currently in jail awaiting for their trial dates.
Angela Chan, Chief of Policy at the San Francisco's Public Defender's Office, says she's frustrated about a severe trial backlog in San Francisco's court system.
There's a human rights crisis in our jails right down the street from here, right next to this courthouse. 115 people are detained pre-trial past their constitutionally mandated speedy trial deadline under the
That's right. They're just rounding those people up, putting them in jail, throwing away the key. They have no concern or care about affording them the rights they have, their human rights, first of all, and then their constitutional rights, given they live in the United States. They just absolutely have no reason to hold these people or to even probably arrest them to begin with.
Sixth Amendment.
That's why she joined dozens of public defenders outside the Hall of Justice this Friday to launch the Summer Sit-ins, a series of demonstrations to raise awareness about the issue.
That is why we're spending our limited resources to be out here every Friday for 2 months. Because if these individuals were a different skin color or had more money, there is no way the courts would do this.
She says,
Yep, there it is. She had to point it out exactly. It's only because of their skin color. That's why they're there. And these people are taking their very valuable time. They're coming out here to raise awareness, and we should all show appreciation for them, give them applause, give them some jazz hands, and that would be appreciated, helpful.
1,100 individuals are awaiting their trial date. According to her, a trial date should be set within 30 days of arrest for a misdemeanor case and 60 days for a felony case. However, the existing backlog is causing significant delays, so they propose
that the Superior Court could dismiss some of these cases because that is the actual remedy for when a trial deadline is passed. Dismissal of cases and holding more trials by opening as many spaces as possible in San Francisco. And there are plenty of vacant buildings and spaces that they could use.
Yep, that's exactly right. There's plenty of resources, plenty of room, but they have no desire or no wish to actually have any kind of justice because they're using a very antiquated idea of like colonial justice, and it's very problematic.
Office has been complaining since the COVID pandemic in 2020.
The backlog started during COVID when there was the Judicial Council was reached out to, and there was some allotment meant for delaying trials to some degree. But the reality is things have opened back up. People are going to concerts, people are going to movies, people are in restaurants, people are in cafes. If we can do that, then we can honor the Constitution.
He added that back in September 2021, he filed a lawsuit against the Superior Court challenging this backlog. And this Thursday, a state appeals court ruled that it was allowed to proceed. In a statement, the San Francisco Superior Court responded, "We are committed to fair and prompt handling of all cases. We will continue to send criminal cases to trial in a timely manner based on the priorities set out by the legislature and the appellate courts."
And the Public Defender's Office says that they're going to continue doing these events throughout the summer until they see a real change in the court system.
That's right, exactly. So if they can't provide a reasonable and speedy trial, they need to just let those people out, let them live their lives until they can get a trial. There's no reason they should be suffering and being forced to be in those miserable, terrible jail conditions. Outrageous. You know, the amount of what I notice in there is definitely the problems are capitalism, of course, tons of racism, massive amounts of sexism, and probably some other stuff. I'm not even going to bother mentioning it. It's got me very upset. So let's just move on to the next channel here, the next story. We've got next story here is BART is going to raise fares, parking fees, as ridership is going down. All right, what's going on?
It's no secret BART is struggling to attract riders, but now it will be asking the riders it does have to dig deeper into their wallets. BART.
One of the reasons that BART is struggling because they're arresting everybody. They put people in jail, and then people don't want to ride BART. Duh.
Now it will be asking the riders it does have to dig deeper into their wallets. BART just signed off on a budget that raises both fares and parking fees as it waits to hear whether the state will approve a mass transit bailout in the budget due next Thursday. So BART is facing a fiscal cliff with pandemic relief funds running out. That could mean drastic cuts to services unless the state steps in. So with all of that looming, BART just approved an 11% fare hike over 2 years. Parking fees would rise from between $1 and $3 to as high as $6.30. And BART could start charging for parking and weekends and weekday afternoons, depending on the demand. So the agency is facing an estimated $93 million deficit in 2025. So it does beg the question, with ridership hovering around 40% of pre-pandemic levels, will fare hikes only make BART's problems worse? All right, Wilson Walker is live at the Concord station where
the main problem going on here is capitalism. Duh. It's just capitalism. If they would allow for the free flow of resources and stop with this stupid scarcity stuff, there'd be no reason to raise prices. People could get where they want to go. But this is, like I said, this is the fascist news. They never want to mention that sort of thing.
isn't a problem finding parking these days. So that's a good thing. Hey there, Wilson.
Yeah, BART riders got that going for them. Plenty of parking at just about every BART station. We will show you those available parking spaces in a little bit. But yeah, it's no secret that BART passengers have had a lot of complaints lately, a lot of polling showing that BART riders have different concerns. And now you hear about a fare increase. This is something that is obviously going to raise some questions. So we asked BART about that, why they're doing it, and a little bit more about the specifics on how those fare increases will work.
About 10 years off and on.
34 years.
What do you think of the service?
It's gone down since I started riding it a long time ago, yes. Okay. Used to be much better.
The experience has been gone down poorly. I'm not feeling safe lately.
The complaints from longtime BART passengers are now familiar, and those passengers are also familiar with.
Yep, they're familiar with the fallout and consequences of capitalism. That is the problem. We have way too much capitalism going on here, way too much free markets, and when you have that, you're going to have negative things happen. So this is just basic economics.
Budget crisis.
I hope they don't raise fares, but I don't see any other way of them not raising fares, unfortunately.
I actually did not support the fare increase that was adopted by the board. I advocated for a smaller increase, but I do support the idea of having regular increases in the fares, because the alternative to that is what the BART board did 20 plus years ago, which was they didn't increase fares for a long time. And then every 8, 10, 12 years, they had to have huge fare increases. And that really impacted riders. So
board member.
All right, this is all I can take of this, because they are just not going to point out the most obvious things. Like I said, it is just a denial of free energy and the this constant belief in the scarcity stuff, which just causes a lot of fear and suffering, massive amounts of oppression. It's really quite discouraging. So I'm gonna have to move on from this story. So we get the last story here, which is going to be trans-friendly. See, find me some good news here. Trans-friendly Bay Area roller derby league faces financial squeeze. Well, it's all right. Let's see what they got.
Has provided a refuge for members of the LGBTQ+ community.
And the Bay Area has played a key role in the sport's evolution. Our Kelsey Thorne caught up with members of a local roller derby league to find out why it means so much to them.
Kate Silver first got involved in roller derby about 10 years ago. Right around the same time, she was coming out as trans.
I was looking for a community, and so I'd gone to some roller derby games where I was going to grad school, which was in Madison, Wisconsin, and found out that looked very queer and queer friendly, and so I started getting involved.
It didn't take long for Kate to fall in love with the sport. So when she moved to California, one of the first things she did was join the local league.
This league has a special place in Derby history. It's one of the first leagues that was founded in the what's called the Flat Track Revival in the early 2000s.
Bay Area Derby, or as many of its members call it, BAD, is one of the most successful leagues in the country, offering opportunities for both beginners and advanced skaters to play and compete around the world.
Yep, and here's the problem. Because it's so successful, now you've got the venture capitalists and the other capitalists are coming in. They're putting the screws to these people. They just want to exercise, of course, their bigotry and prejudice, and not allow these people to get together and have some fun, because that's like a threat to them. So this is very unfortunate that we still live in these times, but that's what I'm seeing here. Let's continue on.
Is one of the most successful leagues in the country, offering opportunities for both beginners and advanced skaters to play and compete around the world. Spider here is one of the newest members.
I just was like kind of stalking them, trying to find, because I was like, I want to get back into skating. And then the first opportunity was a Learn to Skate clinic. And I just signed up, and then I've stayed connected ever since.
Derby has long been a sport that queer people have gravitated towards. And in recent years, many trans people, like Kate, say it's one of the last sports they still feel welcomed playing.
It's probably the only sport in which, at the highest levels, trans women are accepted, and trans men and trans masculine people are accepted without flinching at all.
Spider told me BAD is where they made their first friends in the Bay Area. And because of that, it's grown into so much more than just a sport.
Community, belonging, togetherness, bonding. It means a lot of different things.
Spider, man, Spider is so inspirational. Luckily, BAD was able to bring together Spider and all these other nice people, and we got to have this lovely news story. I just wanted to go out on a good note here and say, even though it sounds like they're struggling a little bit financially, we get to draw inspiration from these people. So, yeah.
But all of that could soon be taken away. Bay Area Derby says it's lost a huge chunk of its revenue since the pandemic and is now struggling to pay rent on its practice facility. If they don't raise $50,000 in the next few months, they may have to end their lease. Spider told me when they first heard that, they couldn't quite believe it.
It's kind of like not real. Like, that can't happen. That can't happen because it would just completely tear apart so many of our lives if we didn't have a space.
Kate says the space has meant so much to their community over the years, she too can't imagine losing it.
It'd be heartrending to lose it. I would be crying for quite a while. So I don't like to think about it.
That's why Kate, Spider, and the rest of the league are not going down without a fight. They created a GoFundMe and have already raised tens of thousands of dollars, most of which has been donated by skaters from other leagues from around the world. Kate told me that support has her hopeful they'll reach their goal.
It'd be great to meet our goal and to exceed that goal. We would love that. That would make us very comfortable for the next year or so as we were getting back on our feet.
But as the skaters wait for that day to come, they say they're just cherishing every day they have together, holding on to that welcoming community that initially attracted so many to their sport, and fighting to get the chance to keep it long into the future.
For decades.
So there you go. That story it's like full of inspiration. It's kind of heartbreaking. It's kind of both of those things. It's like a roller coaster, like a lot of things in life. I mean, what I noticed about that story, though, getting back to the reason for this video, which is calling out massive amounts of oppression and racism and sexism. Well, what I noticed in that particular story, we got some things going on. Of course, it's transphobia, number one. And then we've got capitalism, number two, very problematic. There are some elements of racism going on, clearly. There is probably a very small sliver of homophobia that we could probably find in there. Of course, we got sexism and probably fat phobia as well. So there are definitely a lot of systemic sort of attacks going on these people and their, entertainment and their community. So we just want to note that and wish them well. Try to be in solidarity. If you happen to live in the Bay Area, maybe you can go out and enjoy some time and watch them for a while and help them to get back on their financial footing. So there you go. Anyway, that's the news stories for today, friends. And thanks for watching. Remember, we're all in the struggle together. Massive amounts of oppression, racism, and sexism. We need to call it out everywhere, all the time, so that we do not overlook these things. There's a lot of things to be corrected, but it's okay because we're going to correct them. We're going to spread a lot of love. We're going to enjoy our communities, enjoy our spaces, and we're going to get through this together. Until next time, remember, spread love and do not spread hate.